Scott, you called out Rick Scott a little while ago in your remarks. Earlier today, anticipating your remarks, he said, and I'm just quoting here, that the best thing, most effective thing Joe Biden can do to solve the inflation crisis he created is resign. He's the problem.
Resign, that's a good idea.
The senator added later, Joe Biden is unwell, he's unfit for office, he's incoherent, incapacitated, and confused. These are his words. Offering him a chance to respond to that.
I think the man has a problem.
Mr. President, that's enough. Thank you, guys. That's a wrap. How long should Americans be prepared to pay this much at the pump? Are you concerned about a recession, Mr. President?
A year ago, the administration was saying that inflation was transitory. That's obviously not the case now. How long do you think it will be until we see prices coming down?
I'm not going to predict that. It ranges depending on which economists you're talking to by the end of this year, and some say it's going to increase next year. But there's others who say by the end of this year you're going to see it come down by the calendar year. I don't know, but I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it. Frustrated by high prices, by gridlock in Congress, by the time it takes to get anything done. Believe me, I understand the frustration. But the fact is, congressional Republicans, not all of them, but the mega Republicans are counting on you to be as frustrated by the pace of progress, which they've done everything they can to slow down. We've built a strong economy with a strong job market. And I agree with what Chairman Powell said last week, that the number one threat is the strength, and that strength that we built is inflation. So the Fed should do its job, and it will do its job, I'm convinced, with that in mind.
Why do you believe so many Americans believe that your administration is not doing enough to combat inflation? And do you believe that you and your administration bear some measure of responsibility for the inflation that we're seeing across the country?
First is we're in power. That's the first thing. And you justifiably right, we control all three branches of the government. Senator Rick Scott, Wisconsin, a member of the Senate Republican leadership, laid it all out in a plan. It's the ultra MAGA agenda. Their plan is to raise taxes on 75 million American families.
Take any responsibility for your policies?
I think our policies help, not hurt. Think about what they say. The vast majority of the economists think that this is going to be a real tough problem to solve, but it's not because of spending. We brought down the deficit. The bottom line is, how much does America owe? How much in the hole are we going? We're reducing that. The fact is, the average cost of a barrel of oil has been steady for weeks. So why do gas prices keep going up so high? Republicans have offered plenty of blame, but not a single solution to actually bring down the energy prices. You know, we have no plan. They have no plan to bring down energy prices today. No plan to get us to a cleaner, energy independent future tomorrow. So in the future, American families are no longer subject to the whims of dictators halfway around the world.
Or what limits do you believe there should
I'm
be?
not going to respond to anything because I want the story to be about inflation. This will not be my only speech on inflation, I'm sure. But when you look at the economy today, it's clear we've made enormous strides. And our plans and our policies have produced the strongest job creation economy in modern times. In addition, 8.3 million jobs in my first 15 months in office at a record. Unemployment rates are down to 3.6%, the fastest decline in unemployment to start a presidential term ever recorded. And I see, and as I see it, everything across the country is, as I go across the country, our economy has gone from being on the mend to on the move. I know the families all across America are hurting because of inflation. I understand what it feels like. I come from a family where when the price of gas or food went up, we felt it. It was a discussion at the kitchen table. I want every American to know that I'm taking inflation very seriously, and it's my top domestic priority. Republicans love to attack me as a big spender, as if that's the reason why inflation's gone up. Under my plan, we're on track to cut the federal deficit by $1.5 trillion this year. The biggest one-year decline in all of history for America. That's in addition to last year, we cut the budget $350 billion. The deficit, not the budget, the deficit, $350 billion.
What I love that Rick Scott just said is that he's lying about reducing the deficit. I agree. That's exactly the truth. I grabbed onto that because he's saying, look, we're reducing the deficit by $1.5 trillion. That's our way of dealing with inflation. Well, all of that spending came under the Trump administration, but during the port healthcare workers, to the rescue plans for small businesses, all that, those programs, Harris, are ending. So when he says that he said it specifically, we are cutting the deficit, that's not true. Those programs are ending. If anything, they've made inflation worse by proposing more spending. But luckily, they've gotten pushback on a lot of their new spending.
And those two major contributors to inflation are both global in nature. That's why we're seeing historic inflation in countries all over the world. But here's the good news. Because of the actions we've taken, America's in the stronger position to meet this challenge than just about any other country in the world. Some of the roots of the inflation are outside of our control, to state the obvious. But there are things we can do and we can address and we need to do. That starts with the Federal Reserve, which plays a primary role in fighting inflation in our country. I put forward highly qualified nominees to lead that institution. And I strongly urge the Senate to confirm them without delay. The Fed has dual responsibilities. First is achieving maximum employment, and second is stable prices. So I think what's happened is we have, in a sense, I never expected, let me say this carefully. I never expected the ultra MAGA Republicans who seem to control the Republican Party now to have been able to control the Republican Party. I never anticipated that happening. The first is my plan, the Democratic plan put forward by congressional Republicans as a second alternative. Here's how each of us would tackle inflation. My plan is to lower everyday costs for hardworking Americans, and lower the deficit by asking large corporations and the wealthiest Americans to not engage in price gouging and to pay their fair share in taxes. The Republican plan is to increase taxes on the middle-class families, let billionaires and large companies off the hook, but you know as well, I shouldn't say you, I think what I have to do is explain in simple, straightforward language what's going on. Like, the reason why 30% of the inflation last year is because automobiles cost more. Why'd they cost more? They couldn't get the computer chips to make them. People were making a lot more money. They wanted to buy the automobiles. They couldn't buy them because the cost went up so high because there were so few of them. The same way this year. The reason why prices are up. They understand, but they don't. Look, most people, the vast majority of Americans are hoping that their government just takes care of their problem and they don't have to think about it in detail at the kitchen table or at the dinner table.